Okay. Is there anything in particular that anyone would like to talk about tonight? If not, we'll just roll with what comes up. Okay. Okay. So then let's just sink into the room. Just kind of let your eyes take in everything in front and around of you all at once. Let yourself slow down to the speed of the moment. Give yourself a chance to stop. And just be authentically here. The greatest distance you can travel is the distance from where you are to this moment. Now I'm putting you all on mute, but if you need to ask a question, you can just unmute yourself and ask it. For now, let go of your day. Let go of your personal story. And let all of that attention that frees up unfold naturally into the space of where you are right now. Here you are. You've shown up for a meditation class. Meditation begins where you stop. So you have to let yourself stop. It's not something you can just tack on to what you're already doing. You have to stop completely. so that you can give 100% of yourself to just being real in this moment. What does being real look like? It means you're not constantly asking the moment to be something different. Nothing needs to change. You accept it exactly as it is, and you accept it so authentically that there's nothing to defend, so authentically that you can relax deep inside of you. You can unclench. So place your attention high in your body, forehead and crown. We're going to meditate with our eyes open, so just allow them to fall to a spot on the floor in front of you or on the desk in front of you. Just anchor them somewhere so that you're not trying to figure out what to do with them. And you're just going to step into the authenticity of the breath. Breathing in, you're right there with that inhale. Breathing out, you are right there with that exhale. And you're paying so much attention that you're even aware of the little gaps of nothing space in between the inhale and the exhale. That little moment of opening. You're so released to the breath that that little moment is even available to you. Do that now. Just breathe in full awareness. Let that be enough. Right here, right now. Give yourself some time to transition into that space. slow yourself down. There's nowhere to get to. Nothing to achieve. Let all the stories come to a halt. Seeking comfort has never once made you comfortable in any lasting way. But if you let it all stop right here, right now, the comfort that you've been seeking will be there. You can't find it in a rejection of the moment. You're uncomfortable because the things you're participating in are not real. They're human-made stories built on drama, emotion, fear, and desire. And you don't have to resolve them. It's their nature to be unresolved. You just have to let them go. And you don't have to let them go forever. Just let them go right now. So that you can have an experience with something real. Nothing to fix. Nothing to perfect. Nothing to figure out. Just the simplicity of your breath. I know some of you have major pain spots in your stories, and they sit in your body, keeping you from being relaxed. Stop protecting them. Just let the simple breath move through them. Touch them. Let them open up. They don't have to change. Just let them open up. The pain you'll feel is temporary. It's just the blood rushing back into a spot you've been squeezing off. Just go ahead and feel it. It's okay. Nothing to push away. Nothing to resist. If it hurts, let it hurt. The only road out of pain is acceptance. Feel it in full awareness as you continue taking steps forward. Stay open. Okay, let's talk a little bit. You have to be able to wipe the slate clean. You're living lives that are built out of stories. And in the beginning, when you're a little kid, those stories aren't that complicated. And you can see that on a child, can't you? You know, they are free. They are open. They're not anticipating a bunch of horrible things. But over the years, we participate in the stories of the people of this world. And it just starts to build. There's just this collection of insult and joy and success and failure. A lot of it, rather than dealing with it, we learn how to push upswings in feeling. And so we use friends to do that, and drugs and alcohol and movies and anything we can think of. And in doing that, just this trail of crap builds around us, drags behind us. And for most people, it's pretty bearable for a long time. It's not until you get to a place where some of the crap is, you know, a real doozy, that suddenly things just, you can't make them work anymore. And so you have to go back to the beginning. A person enmeshed in their stories goes, well, how can I do that? That's, these things I'm dealing with are real. I'm not the only one that sees them. There are other people involved. But any of you who have meditated for any length of time knows that when you sit down and shift your attention, those problems shift away from you in the here and now. In an instant, the meaning that is assigned to them is gone. And you're capable of an amazingly different experience of the moment. Now, most of you view that as a vacation from reality. It's actually the other way around. That's reality. The stories, as hard as some of them are, or as frustrating as some of them are, those are held in place and developed by your attention. Doesn't mean that certain things didn't happen, but that's not really the story. The story is your interpretation of everything. The story is the idea that you have to avoid something that happened. A simple shift in the attention where you're no longer holding it up and it all collapses. So the story is not what's real. And that's good news, because this world can be pretty rough. You need to be able to return to what's real. For me, when I think of that, I always think of, I think of the tarot. The tarot is a system that is meant to reflect the human experience. It's got 22 cards that are called major arcana, and they reflect kind of the divine lessons that we're all here to learn. And then you have the minor arcana, which I think is 56 cards, that go through every different permutation of what could happen to a person. But there's one card that is given no number at all. We've started writing 0 on it, but it traditionally had no number. And that card is the Fool. And often it's, misinterpreted to be an issue of foolishness, but really what it is it's somebody who is at the beginning. Actually, I think I have one here. I'm going to show it to you. It'll probably be in reverse on your screen. It's this right here. And so you've got this person who is happy, not a care in the world, and they're about to walk off of a cliff into life. It's the beginning of every human journey.
I've heard people sometimes use that to represent an
Yeah, let's not go there now, though. It makes sense that it would represent an infant, and it can represent an infant, but the aspect of infant that it represents is that their journey is just beginning. Okay? What this represents is actually universal consciousness, undifferentiated by your stories. That's what this represents. And so that describes an infant, but it also describes you in the meditative state. What I've been teaching you guys for 20 years is this: to come back here, to pull yourself out of the mire of your stories, and come back to the beginning. We talk about this in just about every spiritual path in the world. In Buddhism, they talk about the Four Noble Truths. And what that is essentially that life is suffering, but what makes life suffering is your desire. And that if you can pull out of your desire, you can pull out of suffering. It's actually the same teaching. In shamanism, well, I'll have to think on that one. But the way I've always taught it is that you are living out a story. You're living out many stories. You've got roles within those stories, but those roles pick up baggage, and they get heavier and heavier and heavier. And you have complete power over how much of that baggage you cling to. In any given moment, you can just reset the story. We've talked about this in the past of not becoming a container for somebody else's karma. When you come in contact with somebody that you've got a rough past with, or somebody that, you don't have good feelings about, that you can just go ahead and forget everything you think you know about them. In shamanism, we do talk about it in terms of infancy. We talk about it as the return of the infant's gaze. That's Toltec shamanism. Only as you return with the infant's gaze, you have perspective at the same time. One of my teachers used to say, I trust you, but I also know you. And those two things don't have to be mutually exclusive. Really, what you're saying when you say that is, I trust myself. I can go ahead and open up and let go and be present and participate in this moment. And actually, if I do so, all of my senses are awake and I'm paying attention. And if something I need from my memory comes up in this moment, if there's something that is about to take the moment down a wrong pathway, not only will I catch it, but my openness will pull that forward from my memory to inform the moment. So you don't lose any of those experiences when you return to the beginning. Everything you've gained is still there, okay? Every moment in this life is an initiation wedged into your body. The difference is that the average person just lives in the storylines of their past. Whereas the spiritual warrior lives here. They take little vacations into illusion so that they can build businesses and get degrees and play with friends and all of those things. But they live in that beginning space where anything they need from the past, and actually sometimes even from the future, can come forward and serve them in the moment without holding them back. My teacher used to have this expression that I always hated. She used to talk about she wants to have her cake and eat it too. And I never thought it made any sense. But this would be an actual area where that makes sense. You have all of your past, but now it's serving you. Whereas before that, it's holding you back. Before that, you're using it to beat yourself up, or you're using it to beat up other people, which is the same thing. Or you're using it to figure out where all your limitations are. Whereas if you can just slow down and open up in this moment, if you can just let go of this vast body of knowledge that you have, and just let that part of you that is present, real, and aware operate that tool when and if it's needed, you can live in a very different way. You can live in a way where now that memory becomes your intuition. You can live in a way where what everybody's responding to in this world from you is authentic. Instead of just responding to something that they see that resonates with some past fear or desire. It puts you in a position where not only can you understand everyone, but you are understandable to everyone, because the part of you that is real in you is the part of them that is real in them. And so when they see you, it actually connects them to some of their clearest moments, some of their most released moments. It awakens that in them just by seeing you, just by talking to you. So yes, it is a restoration of the infant's gaze, only housed in a tool that has been growing for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years. Right now, the tool owns you. And so you take little vacations from the tool into meditation. That needs to flip. The storyline needs to be the vacation, and you need to stay awake within it so that you don't get lost in it. Do you guys remember that movie, What Dreams May Come, with Robin Williams? His wife ends up dying, she commits suicide, and then she ends up in hell, not because she committed suicide, but because life is a product of your attention, and so was her death. And because she was in a hellish state, she ended up surrounded by a reflection of her own mind. And when Robin Williams dies, he goes down to save her. The problem is, if you fall asleep in hell, you get stuck there forever. And so he had to go and enter these realms without falling asleep, without losing remembrance of the fact that that was not his home. Human beings have lost remembrance of who they are. They've lost remembrance of what's real. And they've fallen asleep within it. This is what you look like awake. Back at ground zero. Your progression into the story is barely a progression at all. It's mostly a spinning around. And there are ways to do that that are useful to other people in the story. There are ways to build within it that are useful, that actually make it a wonderful, incredible gift. But you have to stay awake. You can't make it the sum total of reality. Your consciousness needs to be intact so that you aren't just spinning a bunch of painful stories for yourself to live out. They don't always start painful. They usually start based in your desires, but after a period of time, just because, when you're stuck in the story, things just descend. I mean, even the best story of life ends in death. You have to stay awake to the impermanence of all of that. You have to be able to shift your attention onto something real. And that's what the meditative state is. It doesn't have to take you out of life, and it doesn't even have to take you out of the story. But a person living in the story who knows that it is not the ultimate reality, even if they're walking the same storyline, is having a very different experience than somebody who believes all the meanings they've assigned to these stories are real. One person is free and just moving around plot lines, and the other person is stuck. One person is paying attention and just being of service to the other players that they've cast in the story, knowing that if they need to, they can collapse it and just build something new. And the other is imprisoned in their personality, in their own ideas of their own strengths and weaknesses, limitations. Those people live the same 4 to 5 days over and over and over again. They evolve, but very slowly. And usually it takes horrifyingly painful experiences to push their evolution forward. Not always. The birth of a child. Birth of a child, death of a loved one, the loss of a job that you were counting on that you thought would be there forever. Massive betrayals, those sorts of things. And a lot of times, the change that they induce is not evolution. Meditation is an opportunity to step into what's real and evolve with that. You have it all. You've got the story, but you also keep tabs on what you actually are. And when the story starts to get too dark, you can open up within that darkness and assign it a different meaning. In the beginning, you'll take breaks from it when that happens. But the real end goal here is to be able to stay open in the face of anything. That's freedom. To not just be life's puppet, right? When life tells people to cry, they cry. When it's time to laugh, they laugh. Puppets. Instead, you're just present and open, participating as you choose. And if you have to collapse it, you collapse it. And it's all okay. So in the beginning, the way you get there, the practice, is to constantly wipe that slate clean. Keep cleaning it. And if you've got a difficult storyline in your life that you're working on, spend time wiping it clean, but still being in it. Go ahead and just for a while, forget everything you know about it, but still be in it. Or you can massage it a little bit. Ask yourself, is there a different meaning I can assign to this? Bring it into your meditation and just sit with the question, is there a better view for this? Is there a different meaning I can assign to this? And see what comes forward. All of that is conscious ways to work with the story of life. Those are all things that keep you from just bouncing up against the walls of your personality. Stuck. Just trying to find simple little pleasures and distractions here and there to make up for the fact that your life feels stuck. Meditation just takes the lid off and all the air can get in and breathe. But it's not escapist. You can still enter the story. You can still be a part of this world. But there can't be a part of you that is untouchable. You can't have these little secret parts of you clenched off that nothing's allowed to touch. The breath, the light, that peace. You have to be available to it. Every breath, more and more open, more and more available. I know we've never really talked about that in that way before. Are there any questions about that? I noticed there's a couple things in the chat. Let's see. So Amrita is saying that makes so much sense. Earlier is holds you back. When you do the work, you're using the past to assist you. That's right. It all becomes a tool. And that doesn't mean that every moment's going to feel amazing. And it doesn't mean that you're always going to be successful in every endeavor. You're sharing this world with a lot of people, and almost all of them are stuck in the story. They're stuck in a zero-sum game where there are winners and losers. It's okay. It's all for play. It's okay to win. It's okay to lose. But you'll be a much better player in the game if your awareness is intact. If your feelings just don't have you under their thumb all the time. You know, it doesn't mean you have to be like me. You know, I'm a bit reclusive. You know, I don't think anyone would describe me as a sociable person. You can be you. You came here with your own unique fingerprint. Let this be what reality looks like moving through your fingerprint. But the one thing that doesn't vary from one person to another is that if you are not stepping daily back into reality, if you are not taking time in reality and trying to thread that back into your story life, which I know has gotten very complex, hard to keep track of. If you're not doing that, you're suffering. You're in a state of de-evolution and you're suffering. Or if you're evolving, you're taking the most painful road forward you can possibly take. It's all just the road of pain. That truth is true of everyone. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that. Have I gotten too esoteric? What I'm asking you to do is no different than what I've asked in every class for 20 years. We're just looking at it from a slightly different angle. Maybe this is your angle. Wait, say that again, Bob? Ah. Great. This is the road that works. This is a road that will feel good. This is a road that makes things workable. And the more you do it, the more you'll see that. You'll see that one way works and one way doesn't. And that's an important realization that you have to have. You can't just pick it up from me. You have to show yourself. You know, I'm not here to run your life. But most of you have caught little glimpses of this. Some of you have caught big glimpses of this and have had phases where you lived this way. But you fall asleep again. But that moment where you realize one way works and one way doesn't will be a turning point for you in your spiritual life. It'll be a moment where suddenly you can make yourself do the work. And the work is just wiping the slate clean and sitting with something. Whether it's your breath or your dishes or your worst enemy, you wipe the slate clean and you just sit there wide open with it. And if the moment starts to turn in a way that you need to catch, you will have all your past experience at your fingertips. In fact, it probably won't even have to speak to you in words. You'll just find yourself moving in the way you need to move. You know, if there's something that you're going to need in the next few hours, you'll find your hand reaching for it before you leave the door. I remember once being in a barn with a horse, and the horse got spooked, and you know, people die that way. And he started stampeding and running, and I found myself, my whole body just knew exactly what to do. It got me up against a wall, somewhere where the horse couldn't get me, but it was like there wasn't a moment of thought, there wasn't a moment of panic. It was, I could see what was happening because I was aware and I was present. And so before the horse even knew that it was about to stampede, my body was already reacting to it. This sort of thing happens all throughout life. And sometimes it will help you be successful in an endeavor, but 9 times out of 10, what it's really trying to do is give you your next spiritual lesson. So you'll find yourself in difficult things that maybe don't work out, but they teach you the exact things you need to finally learn a certain degree of humility, or to finally learn a certain spoke in your maturity. And it's all okay. So go ahead, let it be hard, stay open. And every day make a practice of wiping that slate clean. Sit down for 15 minutes. You can handle anything for 15 minutes. Go ahead and suck at meditation for 15 minutes, but do it. And if you can't do that, keep showing up here. And when you have that realization eventually that one way works and one way doesn't, then you'll start doing it. And that's okay too. One way is sanity, and the other way is just bouncing off against the walls of your own neuroses. But you have to step into it to see it. And you have to keep stepping into it to remember it, because no one else in life is asking it of you. All right, everybody. I'd like us just to be quiet for a couple of minutes before I send you back to your night. So Let's go back into meditation, just briefly. Let yourself come to a stop. Attention at the forehead and crown. Take in the entire room at once. And then center yourself on your breath. Breathing in, breathing out, and nothing else. Let it all go. Let it be new. Because it is new. You have no idea what your next moment is. Unless you create it by placing your attention on the past. Step into the new. And if you step off a cliff, you step off a cliff. You'll probably land soft. And if you don't, that's okay too. All right, everyone. I'm going to let you get back to your night, and I will be here again next week.
Excellent.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.